Good morning, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are, and welcome to this week's Weekly Energy Boost. My name is Elisheva, and I'm here with David today to talk about spiritual hibernation. It's a very, what's not vague, but nebulous title, and we're going to get into all of the things that can mean, especially in today's day and age. You know, you can be online and active and, talking to people at 4 a.m. under your blanket. So there really is a definite need to talk about what it means to step away and step aside and find ways to create that space in your life. We also have to talk about the exciting opportunity that's coming at us this week, not only through the weekly energy as we normally share it, but we have a beautiful cosmic window that's opening up this week that's going to last for 8 days. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And as always, we want to make this the most practical and relevant conversation that we can, integrating it into what the world is experiencing now. Weekly Energy Boost is usually a 7-day spiritual weather forecast where David and I and our guests provide our listeners with practical and powerful tools from the wisdom of Kabbalah so that not only you know how to navigate the potential challenges and gifts coming at you in the week, but also lessons and tools you can use anytime. And this week is no different. We are in the month of Sagittarius. We have the cosmic window of Hanukkah. In a way, the energy is really supporting us to be light and to really step into the role of creating miracles. But at the same time, when you look outside your door, pretty bleak, pretty dark, pretty vicious and hateful. And there's no denying that paradox. On one hand, the Kabbalists say it's the best time of the year. On the other hand, reality shows us otherwise. So I think that's the best place to start with. Where do you want to take it?
One of the things that we should always pre-frame our sessions with is no matter what you're going through in your life right now, it's exactly where the Creator wants you to be. And since the time of our birth, and really going back to the birth of creation, our destiny has been laid out in terms of the ups and the downs that we will go through. Now, what if it already has been scripted? What is my participation in the script? And this is always a question people ask. Is there free will? Is it fate? Where does my destiny fall into all of that? And what we're always sharing is that the way you should approach life, and the sages explain, is before a challenge occurs or before you do something, you have to realize you do have free will. After something occurs, you have to know that since the time of creation, it was meant to be that way. And that's important because a lot of people carry guilt, shame, regret, and that then morphs into a form of anxiety that they carry with them. And that's a question for all of us who are listening. How many of us are holding on to something from the past that we either did right or wrong, and we are drawing energy from that still, or allowing that to suck energy from us? And to realize that wherever you are right now in your life is exactly where the Creator has wanted you to be. It's important now to become present and to choose the light of the Creator. Choose from this moment on how you want your life to be. So I wanted to kind of start our session with clearing out the past. Whatever it is that we're holding on to, we have to let it go. We have to create space now for the new destiny to come in.
It's so interesting that you say that, because just last week, Daniel Noor was here or there talking to me. And one of the things he said is that a lot of those belief systems that originated in childhood or in when we were younger, they served a purpose, but now that we're 40 or 50, we don't need them anymore. And
there's a good example of that.
Well, we were talking specifically about resentment, and I love that you didn't catch that episode. But it was...
I got to catch up.
That one you definitely have to go back and listen to. It was really epic. And he was talking about, everyone else heard the episode. I'm just cluing you in now.
Maybe they didn't.
Maybe they didn't. No, I'm teasing it. Stop and go back and listen to the hurt episode. We were talking about hurt and resentment. And he said, that resentment when you were 10 protected you.
Right.
Right? Didn't let you be naive and walk into that relationship where you were going to get hurt again. But now you're in your 40s or your 50s and you have a secure relationship, and yet you still are harboring resentment towards your parents or your siblings or whatever else. And we talked about the different ways that resentment blocks us, which is really powerful. And I definitely learned a lot. But in that the whole idea of asking what's serving me and what's simply just getting in the way. And I think that also part of the conversation when you ask, we don't ask, that if it happened, that means it was how it needs to be. But right now, I think no matter where you live, what you do for a living, what your relationship status is, we're all faced with this kind of helplessness. I think that that's a universal, unless you're in the heart of I don't know, maybe if you're in politics, you might feel like you have some power, but who among us feels like I can make a difference in the world today? And I guess maybe people do feel a difference because they argue with one another and they try to convince one another. I was talking with a group of teachers earlier today, and we were talking about how we stay sane in these moments. And that's why I think this week's conversation is really powerful, is that sometimes you do need to take a step back and pull yourself out of the mud, out of the chaos that's going on, in order to get stronger and have clear perspective on what's my role and how can I help and why it's in my movie. And then you can come back recharged and with a different perspective and better efficiency in the role that you do play. So you don't have to be a politician or a soldier or, have literal impact to make in order to make a difference. And the Kabbalists always talk about the need to step back, even if you're in the middle of a conversation and you're able to step aside and say, what's really happening here? Are they really upset about something I just said? Or are they really reacting to something that happened 20 years ago? You can't really say that or reflect that way when you're in the heat of the moment. And we teach that in the classes. One of the great questions we ask is, why is this in my movie? Meaning, if everything happens for a reason, what's my reason right now? It's happening for me. But when you're having a heated argument with someone that you love, let alone someone you don't love, but let's say you're having a heated argument with someone that you love, you can't say like, honey, 1 second, I have to ask why this is in my movie, and stop and reflect. You have to engage and be an active listener. So I think the value in taking that step back in a proactive way. What happened yesterday, or what's been going on with me? What can I learn from it? How can I grow from it? And then come back to engage in a more meaningful and impactful way.
And that's really what the energy of this week is about. It's giving us the strength to be present, because ultimately all the pain that we face in our lives has to do with contemplating the past or anticipating the future. And as a result, time comes into play. And when time comes in, that's where the reactive consciousness essentially is taking over. And a person is not aligned with the light of the Creator, because the light of the Creator is above time, space, and motion. So whenever I inject the concept of time, and our teacher, Rav Berg, would pound the table with this concept 30, 40 years ago, over and over again, before it was really a popular concept. Why are you bringing time into the equation? Time means that I am still holding on to the past, or I'm anticipating the future. I'm worried about the future. I'm trying to plan the future. I'm trying to control the future. And so I'm then elongating my process and saying that there's this linear aspect of time coming in. And that is essentially when chaos comes in. All forms of anxiety are because a person is not present in the moment. Something that I honestly try to do all the time is I ask myself, Kabbalah has taught me, as long as I am connected to the light of the Creator, the darkness goes away. That's really all I need to worry about. We worry about way too many of the little details. Now, on one hand, we all have careers, and we all have families, and we all have relationships, and we are members of society, and we have challenges that we need to deal with. There's no doubt about that. But if we fine-tune our consciousness from the beginning of the day and establish the desire that I want to be with the light of the Creator. I want to be connected to certainty. I want to be connected to being present. I want not to be part of the world of time. I do not want to worry about my past. I want to let all that go. I do not want to have to worry about my future. I want to let that go. And I just want to plant the right seeds right now. If I establish that from the beginning of the day and throughout the day, then all the actions that follow in my career, in my relationships, with my friendships, those will be almost robotic, positively robotic actions because they're following the original seed level of positive consciousness. But when you don't have positive consciousness and you just wake up and go about your day, by default, we will be reactive. We will be reactive if we do not first refocus ourselves and ask ourselves, am I present? Or am I now anxious about the future or contemplating the past? Refocus yourself. Always connect to what's going on in the moment. Then a portal will open up. A gateway will open up. And this gateway is to the light of the Creator. And then that light will guide you in everything that you do in your life.
You bring up a really interesting concept, something that I've been talking about with a lot of my students in the one-on-ones that I have. And that is developing our relationship with the Creator, right? Which is very hard to do when you're stuck in the details and the worries and the fears and the anxiety. Just yesterday, it's actually, maybe you can answer this question. Just yesterday, I spoke with someone and I shared this concept and we talked about it. And she said, well, what is the light of the Creator going to sound like? What's it going to feel like? How am I going to know that the way I feel called to respond is from the Creator and not from my fears or from my worries?
So everyone is so consumed with see, we're already worrying about the future. We're trying to use the ego to understand the ego. Because the person is like, well, what is it going to feel like? So they're already not acting like the light. And as a result, when you don't act like the light, you won't know what the light feels like. No one will be able to explain to you what the light feels like. You will know when you are acting like the light. When you're a part of that club, you're a part of that secret society of being connected to the light, you will then know what is going on inside that society. That's essentially what it is. But to be accepted into this very exclusive club called Connection to the Light of the Creator, we have to have affinity, a form with the light of the Creator. So I know that's almost like it's like avoiding the question, but the question by itself is flawed because the fact that I'm so worried about what the light of the Creator is going to feel like, look like, how do I know if I'm there? That line of questioning alone is what is distancing me from the light of the Creator.
Wow. So what David just said, what you're saying, David, is the mere preoccupation with it is an indication that you're not there.
Correct. So what should I do? I need to let go and follow exactly what we've been teaching in Kabbalah 1. We just pause and be present. Connect to what's going on. Do not avoid the temptation to try to worry about the future. It's a temptation. It's an addiction. Because and this is what Daniel explained, for lifetimes, we have been preconditioned to worry and have anxiety as a means of soothing ourselves today. But what the sages are saying is we are stealing energy by doing that. We are injecting the concept of time and as a result disconnecting from the tree of life, the light of the Creator. Instead, just be present in the moment. For example, we are doing a podcast. I'm telling myself I'm doing a podcast. I am talking into a microphone. I am looking at Elisheva, right? I'm not now thinking about what's happening after this or what just happened before it. Because if I did that, you're going to feel that coming through, even if I don't talk about it. So I'm stretching myself, I'm injecting time, and that's the energy that's coming through this. Right now, as you are listening to this, you should tell yourself, I'm listening to a podcast. This is what I'm doing. And be fully present. And then the light will open up and shine for you, and this wisdom will have deeper meaning for you.
What does pausing look like in the midst of something that's heated, meaning you have the luxury before we press the record button to pause and say, be here now.
Right.
When you're driving your car with 4 screaming kids in the back and you have to call back the IRS and, like, again, those Calgon moments, what does pause look like? I don't always have the luxury to step away from a chaotic environment or from something that's stressful or worrisome.
So if I'm in a car filled with screaming kids, my body consciousness is feeling some form of lack, whether it's frustration or annoyance. There's a lack. And that lack desires to be fulfilled. So it's going to look for a way to fill it. Either you scream at the kids and tell them to shut up. That's one way to try to fill it.
Super effective first-hand account.
Right. First-hand account. I mean, if it was really just that easy.
Testimonial.
Right? Just tell them to shut up and they will.
Especially if you say shut up. It's really effective.
Guys, it's time to shut up. And then they all just are quiet and they respect you forever. So that's number one. That's obviously one form of being reactive. Another form of reactive behavior for a parent, it could be actually just taking it out on your spouse or being in a state of anger and just driving home with that frustration. However, what we're saying is pause. Pause what? Pause doing anything besides being present with the frustration. So actually tell yourself, I am now listening to my children screaming. I am now connecting to it. Actually, there's light in it. There is an intelligence in the conversation that they're having and the screaming that they're having. Your body may not enjoy it, but you can rise above your body consciousness and go deeper into the source of what they are doing, which the source of everything is the light of the Creator. So what I try to do is, instead of avoiding it, and I'm not saying I do this successfully every time, we all forget, but if I was in a car filled with screaming children, which has happened, I will then just tell myself, wow, I love the sound of screaming children, and I want to listen to this more intently. I want to hear the symphony that exists in their rambunctious, psychotic, whatever that they're doing. So you're going into it. And our teacher, Rob Berg, would always say, when you have pain, you ask for more pain. You go into it. Do not run away from it. And this is essentially what pausing does. You're pausing the escape. Pause, escaping. Pause, going back to the old familiar forms of instant gratification.
I love that you use the word escape, because that's something I wanted to make sure we talk about as well. A lot of people can't achieve the pause unless they escape. Mm-hmm. And we want to be really careful about running away from something. Or I think maybe the distinction is, it's one thing to pause and step away from a conversation or a situation, or even to say, I need to take a day off so that I can reflect and recharge and renew, versus running away from it. And a lot of people, I think, assume that simply the space itself, getting yourself out of that challenging moment or situation or energy, is enough to heal it or to solve it. It's not. And that's one of the big lessons that the universe wants us to get, not only this week and this month. We talked a couple of weeks ago about how one of the Sagittarian qualities is to avoid depth, intimacy, vulnerability, right? To really kind of, when they're uncomfortable, they just out of here. And a lot of people do that in the name of spirituality. This is negative. This is toxic. This is unhealthy for me, which you may experience difficult, unhealthy, negative, toxic things. But I don't think that you can, I think the challenge is diagnosing the situation as such while you're in the midst of it, without having taken the time to pause and reflect and take some space. You can take space, on the same couch with the person that you perceive as being negative or toxic. If you're able to separate yourself from what's going on, the key to that pause is to give you a moment to not knee-jerk react, right? The problem is the knee-jerk reaction. Sometimes people have the knee-jerk reaction of running away. I see it in relationships when things get difficult. I remember a student so many years ago, literally 24 years ago, probably I met her at 22 maybe. And she had a heated argument with her now ex. She left the house. And in the state where she lives, the parent who leaves doesn't get custody. And so in that fit of reactive behavior, she lost custody of her 3 boys. And I go back to that. I hold that in my, obviously, 20-something years later, all is well, with that the initial impact of the escapism was really drastic for me as a bystander, as a witness. And I held that idea with me that I don't, even though, in the state of California, that's not the law, the image of the consequences of running away reach far beyond the conversation or the conflict or the situation that you're running away from.
Wow.
And so that, to me, when we talk about hibernation, taking space, pausing, even proactively taking a vacation, right? Knowing I'm about to burn out, I need to take some time off. You have to really be real with yourself and make sure that you're not doing it reactively, which is, again, the vision of leaving the house, slamming the door. You don't really know what you're walking away from in that lifetimes of work context.
Beautiful. And I know we can kind of touch on the just final point is that it all comes down to who's making the decision. Are you consciously making this decision, or is your body consciousness forcing you to make this decision? And for example, the great Kabbalist Rav Yehuda Ashlag, he says that looking inside yourself to see what is wrong is actually a very positive thing to do, but only when you are designating time proactively and choosing to do it at that moment. So if I say, for example, tonight, before I go to bed at 9:45 p.m., I'm going to take 15 minutes and review my day and look at my negative actions and take responsibility for it and meditate on transforming it for the following day, this is very positive. However, he says that if you are just going about your day and a thought comes to you about something you've done wrong and something you need to change and you entertain it, this is very negative. Because this is not you choosing to look inside. This is the outside forces controlling you, hijacking your day, and then as a result, causing you to be the effect.
Which is what you talked about in the beginning, focusing on what happened in the past.
Correct.
Takes you out of the present moment, and the light is only available in that present moment.
Correct. So it is a final message to all of us. This is the week to take back control over our consciousness. Do not let the past or the future hijack the way you feel and the way you think. And if it does, which it will, you can take back the reins at any moment. At any moment, you can say, no, wait, I'm choosing to be present. I'm choosing to be connected. I'm choosing not to think about my past or worry about my future. It's a choice that I can make right at this moment.
I want to make sure we also talk about what's happening this Thursday night, which every time of year this comes around, we give some attention to it. And especially because it's something that if people want to learn more about, they still have time. This Thursday night through next Thursday is what the Kabbalists call, and what a lot of people on planet Earth actually call, Hanukkah. But we understand that Hanukkah, Kabbalistically, and then you could say this about every holiday in which there's a commemoration of a historical event. The Kabbalists don't commemorate historical events. We connect to the energy that created the historical event, which preceded the historical event. So we are focusing in those 8 days on downloading the light of miracles, the ability to escape our nature, not to be a slave or be victim to the reactive mind, the need for instant gratification, and all the things that means for us individually. So it's important for me to mention, just for our listeners, that no matter what you do in those 8 days, that energy is available. There are tools and resources on Kabbalah.com, and we can also put the link in our bio so that you can check out if you want to learn more in depth about it. We also do amazing, we stream every night throughout the week. But more importantly, I think for all of us, it's the realization that darkness is simply an absence of light, right? Darkness is not a force within itself. It's simply a vacuum where light has yet to fill. And so when you keep that in your mind, and when you see something that you look at and say, well, that's bad, or that's negative, or that's evil, or that's dark, the Kabbalists always teach, if you're looking at something and assessing that it shouldn't be, or it's negative, it simply hasn't been filled with the light it's capable of containing. So wherever you feel in your own life, the light hasn't fully expressed itself, where it's not ready yet, or maybe it seems hard or dark or negative, use this week to focus on recognizing the untapped potential that relationship or that situation has to reveal the light. The greater the darkness, the greater potential revelation of light. And the rest of the resources and tools, we can definitely put that link in our bio. David, you want to say?
That was good. You wrapped it up beautifully.
Okay, amazing. So it's funny because next week's episode will be in the middle of that energy, and we'll see if we can add some more consciousness and attention to it. What else can I share with everybody? Well, Weekly Energy Boost, as you know, whenever David's on it, is a brief rendezvous between us.
Are you exceeding 30 minutes usually?
We are not. Yes, everybody but you exceeds the 30 minutes. I have to cut them off and you have to cut me off. It's a great paradox as well. Maybe I will throw in one more thing. I thought about it in the beginning and I didn't say it yet. It's really a 2-second mention that we're coming up to the new, we'll talk next week about the new moon of Capricorn, but I actually recommend to people that if you do want to take a break, Capricorn is the best month to take a break. And so since we did talk about, actually a few weeks ago, we talked about using the calendar to plan your business, your work, your strategizing. The month in which it's best to take a break and to retreat and hibernate is actually the month of Capricorn. So if you have the ability I think it's a week from now. So I think the new moon is next Tuesday. So if you can schedule a getaway or a retreat, a hibernation in the 4 weeks after next Tuesday, you're definitely taking advantage of that energy. Weekly Energy Boost is available on all podcast platforms, YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. You can go to weeklyenergyboost.com where we feature the things that we think are important for our listeners to know about. So go back there once a week, once every 2 weeks to check what's going on. You can also click the donate button there. I know it's the end of the year and people are thinking about their taxes and the year-end stuff. So please feel free to help make this podcast possible. We also love hearing from you, so you can write to us there or send us an email at energyboost@kabbalah.com. And we'll see you next week on Weekly Energy Boost.